Welcome to Sewing Out Loud, the official podcast of Zede Sewing Studio. Here are your hosts, Zede and Mallory.
Sewing Out Loud. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mallory Donahue.
I'm Zede Donahue.
And today we're going to talk to you about sergers. But before we do, we'd love it if you could subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review if you would be so kind. We'd really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on, let's talk about our most favoriteest thing in the whole world, sergers.
That's right.
So,
I just surged to see him
Mom
just a very
just
minute.
surged to see him. I didn't have the microphones on. We could have, started this out with some serger noise, which sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, so why would you want a serger, Mom? Sometimes I get people who come in and they look at the sergers, and sometimes people come into stores and they like to spit at people, and they're like, "Why would I want a serger?"
Yeah, I don't know if this is still true. I think the biggest misconception is just to finish off my seams.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, believe me, they're fantastic for that, and that's what I do with them.
Right.
I never want to see another pair of pinking shears in my life.
Absolutely.
The reason you want to have a serger is very similar. The reason you want to have a serger is because of the fabrics we now sew with and use.
Right.
I think that's the biggest deal.
Yeah, the serger has become more relevant and valid with the advent of all of the knits
all
that
of
we
the
like
knit
to wear.
fabrics that we like to wear,
and
and
sew
the
with.
sheer fabrics.
And the sheer fabrics.
And the sheer fabrics.
Absolutely.
I think, the layering of the sheer fabrics, things like that.
So a serger is different from a sewing machine. A serger is not a replacement for a sewing machine.
Absolutely. And your sewing machine cannot do what is called a overlock stitch that is done by an overlock serging machine.
If you have somebody telling you your sewing machine is a serger too,
it's not.
That's not right.
It's not.
And maybe the company
it doesn't exist.
Wants it to be marketed that way, but it's just not true.
The other thing is, if you have someone telling you your serger can do decorative stitches, it can't. We can make it, we can use it in a decorative manner, but there are no specific decorative stitches.
Except kind of the wave stitch.
Well, I will tell you, I can make a wave stitch on any serger, and it has to do with unbalancing the tensions.
It's a serger mistake that they've
put
into good use. No, you're totally right. But that's the closest.
Right.
That's the closest thing.
Right. If you're using a serger in a decorative manner, it's just the way you're using it and the threads you're using with it.
Yeah.
And that is one of the wonderful things about a serger is you can put non-needle threads in a serger and have them show. And when I say non-needle, it's a thread that's probably too large to go through any eye of any sewing machine needle. So you get that decorative look or that thick look.
That big, thick look.
Right?
Well, let's back up a little bit and talk about why a serger is different from a sewing machine.
Right.
So a serger doesn't have a bobbin. It has
That's
needles.
correct.
You'll recognize the needles.
And it has loopers.
Loopers.
You got loopy.
The loopers are what hold those needle threads in position. Okay, like when you're on your sewing machine, your needle goes down.
And they're from underneath.
And they are from underneath.
Right.
But they kind of go over as well. They're not only from underneath.
Right. Because I try to and some people understand this and some don't. It just depends on where you're coming from. Is that a serger stitch is a knitted stitch.
Right.
And not the sewing machine stitch is
a lock stitch.
A locked, sort of woven locked stitch.
Yes.
Okay. And that's one reason, because the serger stitch is a knitted stitch, that you can use it with knits and it will give. The stitch will stretch with the fabric.
That's right. So if you've ever tried to sew a knit fabric with your sewing machine and you've used a straight stitch,
which is a locked stitch. It means it's stable and it doesn't go anywhere.
Right. And then you try to put on your knit garment or whatever and you hear pop, pop, pop. Those stitches, they can't stretch because it's a locked stitch. And so when you use that serger with your knit fabrics to construct them, it's stretchy, that stitch will withstand all of the stretching that your garment will do. And that's what we really love about the sergers. When somebody says, well, what do you use your serger for? And I say, I construct clothes. I construct knit garments, which are the garments that I like to wear, really, most of the time. I like to wear T-shirts. I like to wear
Most of us
sweaters.
wear knits now. Or we wear a fabric that has some kind of lycra or spandex in it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so those, you can have... with a traditional overcast stitch, you have you can use 1 needle or 2 needles.
Right.
Okay. And then you've got your 2 loopers going on that overcast stitch.
You're always using 2 loopers.
Yeah.
If you're using an
overcast stitch, exactly. Then you can do an overcast stitch that has 3 threads where you're only using 1 of your needles.
1 needle thread, right.
You can do 2 thread serging with 1 needle and 1 looper.
That's right.
That's a flat lock application. Some hemming. You can do a 2-thread hem.
Some rolled hems.
Some rolled edges. It's not quite as common, though.
No.
I'd say the most common application for the serger is to create those knit garments in such a way that it's just like the ready-made stuff.
That's right.
Almost. It's just like it. And finishing off your edges on the inside of woven garments or
those shears.
Those shears, yeah.
To be able to finish a sheer fabric with a serged edge versus having to do a French seam or whatever was like amazing to me. I was just so thrilled.
I don't know why you keep having to bring that up, and I am not bringing up the fact
because you never did it.
No, I filmed that video.
Oh, you did.
On the serger scarf. Why am I not talking about
on
that?
The serger scarf.
On the sheer serger scarf.
Right.
Yeah, that's when this is a really cool application of using the serger. This is something you couldn't do with the sewing machine.
Right.
We construct this whole sheer serger scarf, which is kind of like a shawl or a poncho, and it's all using the rolled edge on the serger. And there's an instructional video online on how to do it, and it's a really neat way to see another application of the serger other than just serging off your edges.
When you get to serging, first of all, before I forget this was from one of our people that works for us who has top of the line Baby Lock Ovation Serger. And I think this only happened about a year ago. And she's had, before that she had the Evolution, which was the top of the line.
Before that,
And so I don't know how many years she had that, but say she's had a top of the line serger for 6-8 years maybe, right? And she was talking about pre-washing fabric and how much trouble it was and how it strings up in the washing machine. And I said, well, you serge those raw edges first, right? And she looked at me, and I thought she was going to fall over dead. That she's
she
like,
hadn't been doing
that.
She
goes, I can't believe this. I mean, and you don't buy a $2,000 serger just to finish off fabric so you can pre-wash it and not get strings in your washing machine and dryer or get all knotted up.
I have had a passionate quilter or two who came in
and that's all they wanted.
They were convinced of that, and they said, I'm just getting this to finish my edges to pre-wash
and that's
my
all right
fabric.
And I sell it to them for that reason, and then I show them everything else later.
I said, well, that's great, but you, just so you know, you're going to be pleasantly surprised with all the other things that the serger will do. And actually, our quilting teacher teaches a piecing class.
A piecing class on the
serger, which is
because you can also have exposed seams if you want.
You can have exposed seams.
But I just wanted to put that in there that if you have a serger, you should be finishing off the raw ends of your fabric before you wash it. You won't get those stringy knotted things in your washing machine.
A lot of people are afraid of sergers. Okay, and I didn't know why for a long time.
Because you were brought up on only the best.
Yes, I was brought up on Baby Lock sergers, and
Baby Lock self-threading.
Baby Lock self-threading.
And thread with the thread delivery system, right?
Baby Lock self-threading, self-tensioning delivery system. Those are the Japanese-made sergers.
That's when Baby Lock started with the self-threading serger, I think Mallory was about 4 or 5.
Yeah, so I started using the serger on my own, I'd say when I was about 10.
Oh, I think you were younger than that.
Well,
probably 8.
I distinctly remember whenever...
Wasn't it first grade?
Well, this is what I mean. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Let me talk. I distinctly remember that you would always thread up the serger for me. And then, of course, I could run the fabric through because you taught me how to be safe with the serger and safe with the sewing machine and all that. But then I remember one day I was like, can you thread the serger for me? And you were busy doing something else. You're like, well, you're just going to have to wait. And I flipped down the cover on the Baby Lock, and there are instructions on how to thread the serger. And I already knew how to thread a sewing machine. And so I just looked at that little guide as like a 10. I think I was around 10, like in fifth grade, and I flipped that down and I could do it. Now you'd shown me, I'd watched you before, so that guide made sense.
And every serger that you flip down the front of has instructions
on it,
on how to do it. It's just that everybody sucks except Baby Lock.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Baby Lock does suck. The others don't.
You're right.
Baby Lock sucks the thread right through.
That's right. So, I grew up with these sergers that, they just thread and go. I mean, I was serging projects just forever, had no idea. And then we'd get people who would come in the store and say, I need to learn how to use my serger. And most of the time, I could successfully demo the Baby Lock, get them to buy the Baby Lock, done. They were so relieved to find
it's like you rescued them.
Oh, absolutely. You know, they like, kiss me and buy the serger, because they see how easy it is. And I knew some of these buzzwords about the Baby Lock. Self-tensioning, no threading order, and I had no idea how important these things were until this very persistent woman made me give her a private lesson on her serger.
On a non-Baby Lock non-self-threading machine.
It was something, some piece of what, okay? And I said, I'm going to have to read your manual. And private lessons aren't cheap, guys. And this is why, because people ask us to do things like this.
The reason you're getting a private lesson is it's really difficult.
It's really hard.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so I go through threading her serger with her, and we have to thread it in a certain order.
That's right.
And I didn't realize why until I threaded the serger, and I saw, the threads could cross incorrectly or something. Correct. And I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. Like, I was really learning backwards, compared to a lot of seamstresses that are, mom's age or something like that. So I'm threading it. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the serger had this blade that came from up above.
The top, right.
And I think I could move it.
Yeah, you can move it. Move it out of the way.
Move it out of the way.
But you can't move it while you're serging. You have to stop.
Then, the way the needles were, they were so hard to thread.
Well, they're also slanted and not perpendicular to the fabric.
Vertical penetration on the Baby Locks makes such a huge difference. Anyway, we go for it, and I set the tensions to what it says in the manual, right? And we go, and we get a serger stitch.
But it wasn't beautiful.
Well, it was okay.
It was okay.
Just a tad puckered.
It might have been acceptable to those that don't know.
Yes. It was not as beautiful as the Baby Lock. Plus, the machine sounded terrible. Like, I couldn't have sewn with it.
Right.
It was like,
Very good, Mallory.
Thank you.
I can envision that.
That's what the serger sounded like, and I just
Mallory made that all by herself. We do not have sound effects man.
Nope. I did that by myself, and I was like, I wouldn't sew with this, So then she takes it home. She's like, great, I'm gonna go use this, right? She's back 3 days later.
Right.
One of her threads broke,
and she has to rethread it. That's right.
And I mean, we spent the whole hour of the private lesson threading the machine.
Right.
I threaded it, she threaded it, all this stuff, and I can literally thread a Baby Lock serger, and so can Mom, in under a minute.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Well, you and I don't even use the guide.
No, I don't.
I mean, we know how.
I just recently. I will say this. I've been using the serger since I was 10. And I'm 26, but I really just recently got to where I can memorize some stitches off the guide. But you don't have to,
Well, if you understand what you're doing, it makes sense.
Yeah, when you get a deeper knowledge of the serger, I just started, kind of feeling that way.
Right.
So on the Baby Locks, this is what you want. This is what you want in a machine, something that you can thread and it serges.
You can you can be fully threaded.
Uh-huh.
And be sewing along and say, I want to change one thread. You can clip that thread, take it through the machine, and put a new thread in without re-threading your serger.
That's right.
Without adjusting a tension. You will get a perfect stitch right then.
Well,
oh my gosh, it's like somebody gave me time.
Yes, and that's the way it should be.
Oh, yeah.
And,
well, the thing is I don't know. Okay, I would go without.
I
just wouldn't have one anymore.
I just wouldn't have one.
I would go without. I'd do a little zigzag on my other machine if I needed to do something.
So,
I would go without because it's not. I think of the days when I didn't have this in my sergers.
Uh-huh.
And I would set my serger for a rolled hem. I'd get it working. I'd have it threaded, whatever. I'd get that perfect, and I could get a beautiful rolled hem after an hour or so. And then I would like roll hem everything I could think of in the whole world.
Yes.
Right.
No, absolutely.
Right.
And when it's actually, as a sewing machine salesperson, it's easier to sell these baby locks to people who've had a serger before.
Oh, right, because they know how horrible the experience can be.
The people who haven't had them, they're like, oh, man, I could deal with the tensions
right.
for a little, for less
money. That wouldn't bother me. No, it's not about the money. It's about your time.
No,
it is about your time.
Even I've seen
it's about the excellent stitch.
I've seen people come in, and even if they're like maybe a little surprised by the price or something, they're like, okay. They're like, well, that's what it is, and that's what I need,
Well, and the thing is it saves the time it saves. You can't get it back.
No,
you just can't get it back. And the perfectness of the stitch, you can't get it back. And also the versatility of using those decorative threads and the loopers, and how it just works the first time you put it through.
Yes,
bam, home run.
Yes,
home run.
And there's the fact that there's no threading order. There's no tying on. For this reason.
None of that stuff.
It literally is that easy to thread that you shouldn't tie on the baby lock serger.
Or what I like is when people say, "Oh, well, I just leave mine threaded, and I just leave it threaded with a neutral thread, and I can use." And I'm thinking the thread will run out someday.
Yes, it will. And
so what it tells me is they've got a serger that they've paid money for.
Yep.
A lot of money or a little money, but it was good money, and they're not using it to its potential.
Exactly. No, and if I do know some alteration stores, and they got one serger.
But that's set up with gray thread and black thread and white thread.
White thread, gray thread, beige thread, and they zoom.
Right.
Well, guess what?
And then they call us when they run out of thread.
Yeah, they call us when they run out of thread, and we got to rethread their machine or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, no, but we are not an alteration store. You are not probably an alteration store. You're sewing for fun and satisfaction.
And the thing is that you can be creative with a serger. We do it all the time.
Oh, sure.
I mean, that's I would say it's one of our signature things is what we can show you to do with a serger.
I just taught baby blanket class, with knits, and you always taught the flannel baby blanket class with the decorative threads, and it was that flawless that everyone was successful.
Right.
Even someone who I said, what did I say? Was like, take your needle out, and she's like, I haven't done that before. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how's this gonna go with this lady? Like, she hadn't used your serger since guide class like a couple months ago, and I was like, well, we'll see what happens. And it turned out wonderful. It was very easy to be successful, and a lot of sewing stuff nowadays, it's marketed as this is quick and easy. This is quick and easy. I don't sew because it's easy. I sew because I want the thing to look like I want it to look.
And you can't afford to pay for that. Right.
No, I can't afford it. But I'll tell you what, I don't want something that's going to be frustrating. And I can literally say that the baby locks are an easy thing.
If we did not sell baby lock sergers, I just wouldn't even talk about them.
Nope.
I just wouldn't even have a serger. I just wouldn't even be talking about them.
And that's what some other, I know for a fact that's what some other brands do. I was in a position one time where I had to price out sergers from another brand. And I was like, you want the baby lock. I was telling this customer, you want the baby lock. And they're like, no, I want this other brand. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I was getting the pricing for them. And I thought, oh, it's going to be a lot less money.
It's not.
And I was like,
they're very expensive too.
I thought that the baby locks maybe were more expensive than other brands, and because of I would pay more, for the better thing, and they weren't.
Well,
they weren't.
And
I thought, how can you charge that much money for something that is so hard to use?
And one of our biggest advocates are teachers.
How could you charge
teachers who teach sewing?
Yes.
Say, I can't have anything else in my classroom because I can't go over and troubleshoot a serger every time a student needs me.
And how could you charge the same amount of money for a car that you had to drive standing on your head? That's how I feel about
and start in exactly the same sequence every morning when you got in.
Like if you were awake or not awake, no, it is absolute nonsense. And I know that people have like big time brand loyalty to sewing machine companies, but Baby Lock was the first to come out with the serger for the home.
That's
they
correct.
Were the originals.
They developed the home serger.
The factories in Japan where the Baby Lock sergers were originally developed and patented And
your fingerprint has to be like in the security machine to get in
your retina or something, and it really it just makes a huge difference in your sewing to have a serger that is not even easy to use, reasonable.
We have been a multi-brand sewing machine dealer before where we sold more than just baby locks, and all of our customers had a sewing machine. It might be a baby lock, it might be a Bernina, it might be a Pfaff, it might be an Elna. But their serger was a baby lock.
Yep.
And I mean, because we sold them the best, and we sold them what they should have.
Linda Rainwater, the director of education for dealers at Baby Lock, does this 2-minute serger demo thing, and we're all supposed to learn it and everything, all that jazz. And so we were watching this training video the other day. I actually added to our price list. It says, "Ask us why our sergers are the best. We'll show you in 2 minutes." And I was showing it, and I add a couple more things in there that I like to do, and I just think, why would you ever want anything that was not reasonable to use? And I just demoed it for somebody like 2 days ago, and she has another brand of serger. I can't even remember what it was. And she just
it doesn't matter
nodded
what it is
knowingly.
Right.
She was like, well, I'll be getting one of these.
I'll be coming back.
She's like, I'll be getting one. I need one of these sergers.
Despite the fact that all you want to get is a baby lock serger, some of the other things about them is, I just want to, so people who don't know what a serger is about. We're talking about knits. Do you use a serger on woven fabrics? Yes, you do. On non-stretch fabrics. Yes, you do. Do you make a seam on a non-stretch fabric with a serger? Well, you can, but you won't get the same kind of seam that you got with your sewing machine.
Right.
So if I have, say, a back seam in my skirt on a woven fabric and my skirt's tight, I'm not going to make it on my serger because it will be a looser stitch. It will pull apart, so to speak.
That serger stitch is not as stable, and that's why we want it in our knits.
Right.
We want that flexibility.
That's right.
And I was just talking to Steve about why you'd want a serger.
Yeah.
And he's getting he has a machine, a pretty good mid-level baby lock machine, and he's sewing bike bags, and he's working on some heavier fabrics. He's got a good one, but we started talking about a few things, and he will want a serger in the future as he's getting his sewing game down.
Well, it does many things, and don't think it is a compliment to your other machine. I don't think there's many people that would want a serger without a sewing machine. It's not going to do everything.
Right. You always said, so your sewing machine is your convection oven.
Well, I said it was your microwave oven.
No. The sewing machine's your convection oven.
Yeah, right.
And then your serger is your microwave.
Your serger is your microwave, right?
But if
it complements your other, your main tool.
And sometimes I see people on Instagram and they post pictures of like some other brand of serger, and they're like, "This is my new baby." And
I know, and I feel so bad for them.
And I'm sure some people, it's not like the other ones blow up or anything, guys.
Well, and if you don't know the difference and you're really techo savvy and you're willing to put up with it, I mean, for years I didn't have one that threaded itself.
Sure, but I just know from like watching these people that if they had the baby lock, like tons of more doors would be opened up for them.
Right.
That's what I know.
Absolutely.
That's what I know. So, anything else you want to add about sergers, Mom? I mean, we'll probably have many more podcasts.
I think if you're a serious sewer, that you should have a serger.
And you should probably have a baby lock serger.
No question. Just wait. If you can't afford it, if you think it's too much. First of all, it's not too much. I guarantee you it is not too much.
It's worth it.
It is not overpriced in any way whatsoever. It is what you need if you get a serger. Save your money and get it. Make everybody give you money instead of gifts or whatever you have to do. We've actually talked people out of buying non-self-threading sergers. They've come in and said, "Oh, I only want a serger, X amount of dollars." And we've looked at them and said, "We don't want you to be disappointed."
Right.
And they've opted for the self-threader when we've shown them the difference.
We've never had a disappointed baby lock serger customer.
Actually, in fact, what will happen is they'll buy maybe the Enlighten, and the next thing we know, they want to trade up. Well, or they don't trade up; they just get another one.
Yeah, they just get another one.
They have more than one serger because and we do teach.
we
them
teach
how
all
to
that.
use it, and
We're very supportive.
Right, we're very supportive in what we do with those sergers.
Well, tell us what kind of serger you have and why you like it, and we love to hear about it in the comments at sewingoutloud.com. Thanks for listening.
So long.
Thanks for listening to Sewing Out Loud. For even more expert sewing advice, visit sewhere.com.